All right, hey friends. So I've seen more and more people using different kind of software packages, and I think like one of the things that we're falling victim of is just thinking about software all the time. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what software you're using as long as what you put on screen is looking good. And I think that's the key thing to remember in all this discussion. But one thing that I wanted to talk about today is joint placement. I just want you guys to appreciate these three fingers that I set up. So I did something different with all of them, and I just want you guys to just with me figure out like why one of them is better than the other. So first of all, I just want you guys like just take a look. So I just played in like a bend of the fingers here. And what I've done is I've placed joints in all three hands, and I've placed one finger, and then I just like transparented out, if there's a word like that, transparented out the fingers here. And I think we should just like, without seeing the wireframe or the joints, we just take a moment and just appreciate the side here. So if I look at this finger, as you can see, like I haven't done any skinning at all. Everything has just been skinned to the hand, and then the rest of it has been skinned to one bone at a time. So you can see if I go like this, you can see like they're 100% skinned to each individual vertex. The same thing goes for the rest of them. So as you can see, like this one over here looks a lot crappier than the one over here. Like, why is it that this one looks so much better? You can see like how the finger is actually bending in correctly, how the knuckle is a little bit more defined, how the fat seems to be like working better for our finger. Whereas this one over here seems like a little bit dragged out, and let's talk about like why that is. So first of all, let's just try and like take this one here. So we can take these guys here, and we'll take the middle and we'll take the low. So this is about joint placement, right? Because some of you will work with games, some of you will work with film. No matter what, I think like the best outcome is always when you get the best information from the beginning, and then making correctives will be a lot easier. So even though you might say, "Oh, we're just gonna do correctives," just keep in mind that the the worse or the better your joint placement is, the more work you have in the cleanup phase. So in this case, as you can see, like I called this group for low, and that's because I placed the joints pretty low. I see people do this because they don't quite know where to place the joints, so they just kind of like put them in. So I place the joints like pretty low, and although this is obvious right now, it might not be obvious to somebody who's new to Maya. And although I could skin a little bit more, like if I started to go in and like maybe hammer these things off a little bit, I could do something like that. Let's try and do this. Try and get that little bit of hammer. I mean, you see, it's not really helping me like a whole lot to like get that, like a little bit more of a knuckle shape. I'm not saying that we're gonna get away from this without any corrective. If this was a close up of a hand, of course this wouldn't work. But I am saying like the amount of distance that these vertices have to travel is longer because they're traveling in a bigger arc, you know. So this one has to go from all the way up here because the arc from here is longer. The distance that it's bending around this pivot point here is longer, and that's why it's getting softer. So what is the correct joint placement? It really depends on where or what your fingers are actually gonna do. Like, and of course, like this also applies to arms, like elbows and uh, um, I was about to say knees, toes, everything that basically have like a limb that has a defined like knuckle. You can also ask me like what I think about like necks. In most necks, I put them into the middle of the neck, depending on how realistic I want to go. Um, because like anatomy wise, of course, like our spine and our neck is going in the back of our head. So if we're doing something super realistic, we might want to follow that a little bit closer. But for cartoony, we might not. So for this stuff here, where I'm just going to try and like make a nice knuckle, this is not really like good to me. So let's just immediately eliminate the low joint placement. So what about the middle? Because in the middle, we are actually considering that, okay, so we want to create like a knuckle, but we also want to make sure that the that there's going to be like an indentation when the finger is bending. So we might want to get a little bit of this. But in a finger, which is specifically what we're talking about today, where what we're looking at mostly is the knuckle. Like it's rare that we will bend our fingers this way. So, like if we were, yeah, like maybe the middle of the finger would be pretty good. But since we're not doing that and we're not too concerned about the inside of the hand, more so as more than we are of the outside of the hand. The outside of the hand is still like our priority. Our priority. I'd still argue that the middle is still not good enough. So, um, and as I said, we can always do correctors for this, and you might call me picky for calling this out. But at, as I started out by saying, at the end of the day, it's always about like what goes on screen, and if we can save something really easy, um, we should definitely strive to do that. And so with that, I still think, even though we're bending, um, we might bend our fingers like if we're pushing down on a table, we have like a little bit like the hand is gonna do like this. But besides that, I mean, that's not enough a reason for us to just ignore the fact that we need to create like a knuckle. So in that case, I think we can easily also eliminate the middle. If this was like a neck, like of a character, um, I would still argue, like the middle would be pretty good um, for this side. Of course, like from the top, you would also need it in the middle. Um, but I think like if we can take a look at the last one, you'll see what I mean. This is the rule that I kind of want to apply. Like what I usually do is I always say like no matter how thick a finger is, specifically for fingers and toes, you can see like how this is actually like a lot better, even though I haven't even skinned anything. it just it just looks a lot more natural this way. I could argue that this one could be bent out a little bit more and we could have helper joints and all that stuff. But keep these things in mind. Every time you put in extra joints, extra things, it's getting things heavier, specifically for games, right? So this is what we call the rule of thirds for fingers. And the rule is pretty simple. Like every time I have a finger like here, what I'll do is, let me just try and unhide that. I'll hide that for a little bit. So I'm just gonna hide that. So every time I have a finger, what I do is I just kind of like take the full length of the finger, and I think I can use this one up here maybe to just grease in a little bit. So I'm just gonna go like this, and I can draw it out here. So basically what I do is I take this finger and I divide it into three. So I know that for those of you guys who have already understood this, it's probably pretty simple by now, but this is like the rule of thirds, right? I take a box for the whole thing, and I just say like like where are my knuckles? So that would be here. This one was just a test, right? And that would be here. And then I would just say like there's a joint here, okay, there's a joint here, and there's a joint here. So like I take the top third box, the bottom of the top third box, or like 2/3 from the bottom, or 1/3 from the top. That's the rule of third. And then we just create joints here. And then of course like the last joint doesn't really matter when we're in film. For games we would like kind of delete this one, but yeah, so like this is what I think, like like the rule of thirds. So always keep that one in mind when you're doing your joint placement on your fingers. So I hope that was useful, and it was just like a little quick lecture. It's been a while since I've had the time. I've been out and doing a lot of jobs and helping some other things, and have done a little bit of producing. So hopefully I'll have the time to do a little bit more rigging again. I missed it a little bit, so I will hopefully see you guys again soon. So yeah, see you guys. Take care.